Welcome to Drive the Daf, clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Taanis Daf Vav is about the rainfalls of Yoreh and Malkosh. Yoreh, the first rainfall of the season, or the first set of rainfalls of the season, and Malkosh, the last rainfall of the season. The Gemara will define the terms Yoreh and Malkosh, explain where they come from. The Gemara will identify whether these are brachos or klolos and how you know. The Gemara will discuss when exactly they're supposed to fall, which month and which time of the month. The Gemara will discuss the three sets that are within Yoreh. The Gemara will say when they are supposed to fall, be machlokes tanayim. The Gemara will discuss what halachic difference there is between when these three rainfalls are supposed to fall. And then the Gemara will get into the bracha of the rain, and when it's a bracha, when it's not a bracha, what type of rain is a bracha. We'll conclude the daf with a discussion of the bracha that we say upon seeing rainfall and what the exact text should be. So first of all, let's begin. We have the terms Yoreh and Malkosh. It's in Shema. Hashem promises Yoreh and Malkosh. Ostensibly, the simple understanding is if we do things correctly, then we'll have Yoreh, the first rain, and Malkosh, the last rain. So the Gemara wants to know, what is the term Yoreh? Where does it come from? The Gemara gives three explanations. Yoreh, the Gemara says, maybe from the word moreh, meaning to show, to teach, and it teaches people that this is the beginning of the rainy season and it's time to tar up the roof so that your house doesn't leak. It's also time to bring the fruits into the fields, the fruits in from the field so that they don't rot, and it's time to make whatever other preparations you need to make for the winter. Another explanation would be from the word miraveh, Yoreh, reish vav hey, miraveh, meaning to soak, that it soaks water deep into the earth, all the way down to the depths of the earth, and where it brings the pasuk to support that, Tilameha rove nachas giduder brevivim t'megegena tzamcha, that the rain soaks deep into the earth when it falls gently, and it's for the benefit and the advantage of the people who live on the earth, as it softens it and allows things to grow. Third pshat, the Gemara says Yoreh is from the word is to show that it falls gently. The Yoreh rain falls gently. How do you see that? So Rashi gives two pshatim. Either Yoreh is like a teacher who is meant to instruct the students gently, or it is from shooting. Yoreh, like you fire an arrow goes in a straight line, so this rain falls in a straight line because there are no fierce winds blowing it from side to side. So anyway, Yoreh does not fall violently. Now, let's skip a bit ahead to the Gemara's defining the terms Malkosh. So the Gemara says Malkosh seems to be a contraction of the words Mal and Kosh. Mal meaning to cut down. So the Gemara says that one explanation is that it cuts the kashya sehem, the hardness of Klal Yisrael. By withholding the Malkosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu forces Klal Yisrael to do tshuva. So it cuts down our resistance. Another explanation is that it's from Mimale Kashin, that it fills the granaries with stalks. Mimale meaning fill, and Kashin meaning stalks. And then there's a brayso that has a third explanation that it falls on Melilos and Kashin. Melilos being the ears, the grain part of the stalks, and Kashin being the rest of the stalks. So while it's already grown, it's already in the field, you have almost fully grown stalks, that is when Malkosh falls. So that's the words Yoreh and Malkosh. Now, the Gemara is going to go into whether this is a bracha or a klala. So the simple understanding of the psukim is that each one is a bracha. Hashem is saying, I'm going to give you Yoreh and Malkosh. So the three explanations of the word Yoreh, which we have seen so far, gave it as a bracha. Malkosh we've also defined primarily as a bracha. So the Gemara says maybe it's not a bracha. Maybe Yoreh is called Yoreh because it fires like an arrow. Or from the word Yoreh, that it knocks things over. So maybe it knocks fruits off the tree, it washes away, floods the seeds out of the ground, and it washes away trees. Maybe it's not good. So the Gemara first says, well, it's got to be for bracha, because it's listed together with Malkosh, and Malkosh is for bracha. So the Gemara says, well, who told you Malkosh is for bracha? Maybe it's called Malkosh because it knocks down the houses, and it breaks the trees, and it brings locusts. Mal meaning to cut, kosh meaning the hard things, so it knocks down those hard things, the houses and the trees. Or lekesh could mean locusts, so it brings locusts. So the Gemara says, no. The answer is as follows. Yoreh has to be a beneficial thing, and therefore Yoreh and Malkosh, which are linked together, are both beneficial. How do we know that Yoreh is beneficial? Because in the Nevuah of Yoel, during the time when there was a famine, and the famine was ending, he said, People of Tzion, be happy and rejoice with Hashem your God, because He has given you the Moreh, and that refers to Yoreh. And then the pasuk continues, L'tzedakah, that it's for the goodness, for your advantage, your benefit. V'yordachem geshem Moreh u'malkosh b'rishon. And what's going to happen is that both rains, Moreh and Malkosh, will fall in the month of Nisan, as the Gemara discussed on Daf Hey. Alright, and now the Gemara wants to know when exactly is Moreh and Malkosh supposed to fall. We know that it's the first rain and the last rain, but which months precisely? The Gemara has a couple of different versions of this. So first of all, the Gemara says, Yoreh is in Cheshvan and Malkosh is in Nisan. So the Gemara questions this. No, maybe not. Maybe Yoreh is in Tishrei, and Malkosh is in Iyar. Maybe it's a month earlier and a month later. So the Gemara says, no, when the Torah says it's going to bring it, it says it's going to be Be'ito in its right time, and the best time for it to fall are those months, and therefore that's when it's going to be. Whereas another brayso that also starts off with Yoreh in Cheshvan and Malkosh in Nisan, and the Gemara says maybe Yoreh is not in Cheshvan, maybe it's in Kislev. The Gemara again says Be'ito, Yoreh or Malkosh. The Gemara says that you'll have Yoreh and Malkosh both in its right time. If Malkosh is going to be in Nisan, Yoreh's got to be in Cheshvan, like it's supposed to be, like it's most beneficial for the crops. The Gemara is a different brayso. Again, Yoreh is in Cheshvan, Malkosh is in Nisan, but now the Gemara says it's a machlokes. The Gemara says that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. However, the Chachamim disagree, and they say that Yoreh is actually in Kislev. The first rain falls in the month of Kislev, not in the month of Cheshvan. The Gemara says, who are these Chachamim? Where do you see this Chachamim? So the Gemara says, well, we find another machlokes about Yoreh, and it's a three-way machlokes, and this opinion that Yoreh is in Kislev only fits with Rabbi Yossi. What's that brayso? What's that three-way machlokes? So that brayso says that Yoreh is made up of three separate rainfalls. The first rain of the season falls in three periods that are split up in three different days, and when they're split up exactly is the subject of the machlokes. And the brayso says as follows: the Tanakama is Rabbi Meir, and he says that the first one falls on the third day of Cheshvan, the second one is on the seventh day of Cheshvan, and the last one is on the 17th day of Cheshvan. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Huda says it's the 7th, the 17th, and the 23rd of Cheshvan. Rabbi Yossi says it's the 17th and the 23rd of Cheshvan and Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi is the only opinion that says that part of Yoreh falls in Kislev, and here he is therefore the opinion of the brayso that says Yoreh is in Kislev. Now, what is this all relevant to halacha? So the halacha is that if rain didn't fall in its proper time, there's a certain time at which we start with a series of ever-widening fast days. The first set of fast days was the Hasidim, the Tzaddikim, used to begin to fast private individual fasts on Monday, Thursday, Monday. And they did that when the third rain of Yoreh was supposed to fall, and if nothing has fallen at all, none of the three have fallen by that date, that's the time to start to fast. So we have to know when we're supposed to start fasting, and Rav Yossi therefore says that fast begins on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, or after Rosh Chodesh Kislev, so it would be the Monday that follows Rosh Chodesh Kislev. If no rain has fallen by that day, that's the time that the fasting should begin. Now, Rav Chisda says the halacha is like Rav Yossi. There was a different version of Rav Chisda, in which he doesn't pass like Rav Yossi, he passes like Rav Gamliel, and the question over there is, when do we start asking for rain? Now, we're supposed to start asking for rain at the time when the first rain is supposed to fall. And this brayso has a machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Gamliel, whether that's the third day of Cheshvan. That's Rabbi Meir, as we said earlier, the first rain is supposed to be the third day of Cheshvan, or Rabbi Gamliel, that it's the seventh day of Cheshvan. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, which we've seen in our brayso earlier, which fits with Rabbi Gamliel, and Rav Chisda paskins that way. Now, the Gemara has another brayso. The Gemara wants to know, who does this fit with? This is the opinion of Shimon ben Gamliel. Who does he fit with? He says that if you have 7 consecutive days of rain, so that could count as a 2. It could count as the first and second period of Yoreh, or it could count as the second and third period of Yoreh. So he says that can only be Rav Yossi, is the only one who has both periods within 7 days of each other. He has day 17, day 23, and day 1 of Kislev. The other ones have a 10-day break between some of their rain periods. Alright, so now, halachically, why do we need to know when these 3 rain periods are? So we know we need the first day, because that's when you're supposed to start asking for rain, that's when you're supposed to start saying V'sein Tava Marta L'Bracha. We know we need to know when the last period is, because that's when you're supposed to start fasting if no rain has fallen in, but why do we need to know the middle period? So the Gemara brings about 4 explanations as to why it's halakhically relevant when the middle rain is supposed to fall. First is Reb Zera. He says if somebody makes a neder, he says, I'm not going to have benefit from something until the rains, until the gshamim. He's referring to the second rainfall, either because it's rainfall number 2, so it's plural, or because that's what standard rainfall that people mean when there's enough rain to actually affect the roads, and that's by the time you get to the second rainfall. So that's the Gemara's first pshat. Now, second pshat is Rav Zvid. He says that it's for when you're allowed to pick up the olives that have been dropped as part of Leket Shechot. Now, there are 5 mitzvos of collection. When we harvest the fruits and the grain in the field, we're supposed to leave 5 types of things behind: Leket, Shechot, Peret, and Oilalos. Leket is grains, stalks of grain that you've dropped. Shechot is ones that you left out in the field. That is a already bundled up grain that you left in the field. Peah is the corner of the field you're supposed to leave unharvested. Peret is grapes that you leave on the vine by mistake, and olalos are deformed grapes. All these things are supposed to be left for the poor. Once the old poor people have been meyayish, they've given up hope of finding anymore, at that point anybody who finds any of these is allowed to collect them. Now, what is the period in which people have given up hope in finding these? So the Gemara quotes a brayso. The brayso says, "Leket Shechot and Peah is when the nemushos go through." The Gemara says, "What are nemushos?" Nemushos either means people who walk with a cane; they walk very slowly and therefore they don't miss anything. Or nemushos means people who go with their kids, following close behind them. 2 people in a row aren't going to miss anything, and therefore once those people have gone through, all the poor people give up on finding anything, and it becomes hefker. So that's for Leket Shechot and Peah. Now, as far as Peret and Olalos, both of those are on grapevines, so that's when the poor people go through the vineyard twice. They go and they go a second time. Now, what about olives? When are you allowed to go get the Leket or Shechot of your olives, or the Peah of your olives? When does that become hefker? So, on that, the brayso says when the second rainfall falls. Once the second rainfall has come down, it's already assumed to be collected, and therefore we need to know halachically when the second rainfall is supposed to be coming down. Alright, next pshat, and why we need to know halachically when the second rainfall is Rav Papa. And he says is at that time you're allowed to, up until that time, you're allowed to walk across people's fields. Once the second rainfall has fallen, crops begin to grow, you walk in somebody's field, you'll destroy his crops, and therefore you'll not be allowed to do that. Next pshat is you have to know when to do beer. The halacha is that fruits, grain, which grow wild during the Shemitah year are permitted to be eaten without being harvested for profit or at mass. You're allowed to eat them. You're allowed to have them in your house, but that's only until they cease becoming, they are no longer available to animals in the field, as we learned from the pasuk that says you have to leave it as long as it's available for the animals in the field. You're allowed to keep it in your house. After that, you have to get rid of it. So when is that? When is grain? When is stalks? When is straw no longer available? When you have to do beer, take it out of your house. That is the second rainfall. Okay. Now the Gemara gets into the meaning of the word revia. Revia is the word which we've used to describe rain through much of this discussion. The Gemara says revia means to penetrate and to seed. And it's called Revia because it goes deep into the ground. Rav Yehuda says that rain is like the husband of the earth because it inseminates, it penetrates the earth. As the pasuk says, as the rain and snow fall from the sky, and they don't go back, until it has made the ground soaked, and it's made it give birth, and it's made it grow. So you see that it causes the earth to give birth, and therefore it's like the husband of the earth. Alright, now how much rain has to fall for it to be proper? So the Gemara is going to have a number of statements on this. First of all, the first rainfall, Rabbi Avo says, has to be enough to soak at least 1 tefach, 1 hand breadth, about 4 inches worth of ground. It has to go that far through. Second rainfall has to soak it enough that there is natural mud that you can use to make a cover for the barrel. If you have to add water to make it a thick enough paste to be able to do that, that has not been a proper second rain, and rain is being withheld. If you have that much rain, then there is no curse of Atzaras Hashemayim. Hashem says in Shema, I'm going to withhold the rain. So if you have less rain than that amount, then you have a manifestation of that curse. But if you have that amount, then there's no manifestation of that curse here at all. Now, says the Gemara, what about rain which falls in the morning and in the evening? So the Gemara says that Rav Chisda says rain which falls before you say Shema, before you say the words of Atzar. So that's good rain. And if the rain has fallen just before you said Shema, you don't have to worry that Va'atzar is happening. It's not happening. It's not being withheld. It says Abaye, that's only if it's falling just before the evening Shema. Falling just before the morning Shema means it's falling at night. Falling at night is useless. Early morning rain doesn't help anybody. Someone says that's not true. Well, first the Gemara brings a pasuk to support that. It says Hani Anani Ditzafar Lesbu Mishasha. It's a brisa that says that the clouds of the morning don't help anyone. Like it says, Ma'aslocha Ephraim, Ma'aslocha Yehuda. What should I do for you, Ephraim? What should I do for you, Yehuda? V'chasarchem ka'anan boker. The only good things you've done is like morning clouds, useless. So Gemara asks that it can't be, because there's a common expression. The common expression is that if it rains in the morning, the donkey driver should fold up his sack and go to sleep, because there's going to be so much produce that he won't make a profit by selling anything. So you see, rain in the morning is very beneficial to crops. So Gemara says it depends what it's falling from. Falling from thick clouds is beneficial. If falling from thin clouds, it's useless. All right. Now, what about rain in the month of Teves? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Where is a contradiction? Rav Yehuda says, Teves is good to be widowed, meaning without a husband, meaning without any rain. Why? So Gemara says either because that will leave the roads clear, they won't be full of mud, and Talmidei Chacham won't be able to travel to yeshiva. That'll be a good thing. It'll be a positive effect on the year's crops. Some say because the winter winds will destroy wet crops. It's better off being dry. So Gemara says, but there's a statement of Rav Chizda says the opposite. He says that a good year is when the Teves is all disgusting, meaning that the rain has muddied up the roads. Gemara says it's not a problem. It depends what happened before Teves. If there was enough rain before Teves, you don't need rain in Teves. It's better off being dry. If there was no rain before Teves, then you better believe you want rain to come in at Teves itself. Now what happens if it rains in one part of a region and it doesn't rain in the other part of a region? Kind of like spotty rain. So Rav Chizda says that's a bracha. You don't have to worry about that. That's not called va'atzar es hashamayim, because there'll be enough crops growing in the place where the rain did fall to feed everybody in the area. Where says that's not true. I have a pasuk that says otherwise. The pasuk says v'gam anochi menati mikemes hageshem. I have withheld the rain from you ba'od shlosha chadashim l'katzir, within 3 months of harvest. I'll rain in one city and not in another city. Chaka achas timater. One area will be rainy, one area will be not. And Rav Yehuda comments the name of Rav, those are a curse. Those are both curses. The dry area will be too dry, and the rainy area will be too wet. So you see, raining in one place is a problem. Spotty rain is not good. That's an issue. So Gemara says, no, not necessarily is that a problem. The reason it's a problem there is because it was in an amount which was no good. It was a flood. If you have a good amount in the right place, even if it's only spotty, that's enough to support everybody in the area, and it's not a problem. All right, now we move on to the last discussion of the daf, which is the bracha you say when you see rain. The Gemara wants to know when should you start saying the bracha? When is it appropriate to say the bracha? The Gemara says from when the chassan, from when the groom comes out to meet the kala, to meet the bride, meaning that the rain on the floor comes up to meet the rain that's falling. Rashi says that either means that the rain is falling into a puddle which is already in the ground, so it splashes and drops splash up to meet it, or when streams start running out in opposite directions on the hill because they have so much water. Now what's the bracha? So the Gemara says the bracha is Moed Menachnu L'cha Hashem Elokeinu. We are grateful to you, Hashem, our God. Al Kol Tiba V'Tiba Shehoradet Alanu, on every drop that you have brought down for us. Rav Yochanan said you finish it off with a abbreviated version of Nishma. So you say Ilu Pinu Male Shira Kayam B'Sheinu Yunakam and Galav. If our mouths were filled with song like the sea, and our tongue with praise like its many waves, and you go all the way until don't abandon us in your mercy, and don't leave us desolate. How do you finish it off? Baruch Rov HaHodos, blessed for most gratefulness. Where it says blessed for most gratefulness, why don't you say Kol HaHodos, all great? Where it says 2 different versions, some say Rov HaHodos, some say Kol HaHodos. This is Rav Papa, therefore say them both, because we're not sure which is the correct text to say.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.